Hey everybody, you're watching CAD Roll Hunter. We're back with another 20 rolls of customer wrapped Canadian pennies. Should be a fun hunt. Hey everybody, this is James and you're watching my channel CAD Roll Hunter. That's right, we got 20 rolls of customer wrapped Canadian pennies. Pennies have not been circulating in Canada for 10 years, so they were laid to rest in 2012. That was the last year they were minted. And so folks are still bringing in some of the billions of pennies that have been minted into the bank. And sometimes I'm fortunate enough to get some from the bank. We've got our copper cup and our zinc and steel cup. We're going to be separating out our copper and our zinc and steel cents. I keep all of the copper because it's worth more than face value. So kind of like you might collect silver or in some cases nickel. I keep all the copper stuff anyhow. Now, the banks I go to will sell me pennies and some banks won't. So some of you ask where you can get pennies. I would just ask at your bank. If they say no, go to another bank and ask there. They might very well do it. We're going to be searching for errors, varieties, any old things. If we can find our very first King George V, that would be incredible. Something from the 20s or 30s. King George VI, of course, we're looking for older laureate portraits. We've got our scale here in case we find anything interesting. We've got our magnet here to help us find something interesting. We actually had a really fantastic find in our last hunt. We found a 2006 no logo, no composition mark, magnetic penny. According to the guides, there's only 222 out there, maybe more now, at least 223. We're just going to dive into these and see if we can find anything cool. This bundle, we can see we've got a mix of maybe 80s and 90s stuff. This one, we can't tell because these are those paper wrappers. We don't see what's inside. So the only way to find out is to get cracking into these rolls. Well, we're just 3 coins in and we have found our first cool find. It's a 1979. I've got it under the scope here. And what you'll see is this is the double 979. So a lot of these 78, 79s, some 68, 69s exhibit this die deterioration doubling. So it's not a double die. It's not a mint error. It's just because these dies were used probably longer than they should have. They started to deteriorate. You can see some artifacts on the outside edges of these numbers, and they can be really, really pronounced in these 1979s. This one you could probably see with the naked eye, but this is a cool one to keep. It's got some interesting toning and some spotting on it, but I usually pull the nicer ones aside here. Something cool you can look for in your own hunts. Still in roll number 1, we got our first American penny, probably our first of many. It's a 1995 Philadelphia, which means that it's one we could actually find a really interesting double die. Now, we'd probably be able to see it right with the naked eye here, but we'll throw it under the scope just to get a closer look. Well, there's a good look at the date, and we can see the legend "In God We Trust" here. We're not seeing any of the significant doubling we might find on a 1995, but it's always good just to check and look. You can see a little bit of die deterioration kind of doubling over here as well. That's not the double die. Still in roll number 1, and we're going to find our first laureate portrait find. It's a 1962, and there is that laureate portrait, pretty circulated. On any of the nicer varieties or nicer examples of this, we'd be able to look for the die clash, the hanging 2, hanging 3, whatever that last number is. It's basically an impression of the die clash from the queen's chin and neckline that would appear to be pulling that number up or holding that number up. You can't see it on versions that are this circulated, of course, but something cool to look for too. Roll number 2, I found a 1981 US copper set. Still got a fair amount of luster, but I spied right behind it, we've got a foreign. It is that familiar portrait of Queen Elizabeth, but it is from Bermuda. So we have a 1977 1 cent with the pig on it. Very cool. Our first foreign aside from some Americans. Roll number 3 is going to give us our second older Elizabethan find. We'll see what we got here. It is a 1964. Roll 4, there is a really nice looking 1979, and I just spied right behind it. It is another 1962. Same roll, and there's another one. That's our third 62. Roll number 6, so far the steel and the zinc are just edging out our copper a little bit, but I'm bringing you in because we've got another laureate portrait. It is a 1963, our first 63 of this hunt. Roll number 7 is going to have our 6th laureate portrait. Could it be our first in the 50s? We'll see. Nope, not this one. It's another 1963. Roll number 9, and we've got another 1979 with that die deterioration doubling. That's another double 979. We can add that one to our little pile over here of finds. And they're both in pretty good condition. I think that first one a little nicer than this one. But we're getting towards the end of this bundle, and so we haven't had a whole lot. But what's great about Pennies is that this bundle is probably brought in by a completely different customer. They're all wrapped in different wrappers, so we have no idea what's in here. If it's all new, it could be all old, it could be a mix. We'll find out soon. Roll number 11 is the first of these paper wrapped rolls, and they're very much like what we've just been going through, perhaps even skewing a little bit newer. So I'm seeing some older copper edges, but some definitely bright and shiny newer coins. Well, we are just 6 or 7 coins in, and we are going to get a laureate portrait. So let's see what we've got here. It's a 1962, so very much it appears like our last ones. We're hoping we're going to find something older, like a King George VI would be awesome. Same roll. So far, our oldest one is a 62. We got several of those, and this one is going to be older. This one is a 1957. Very cool. Our first 50s find. Roll 14, we've got a 1969S. Of course, we can check for that really rare double die. It's in terrible condition, but, well, you just never know. Well, there it is. And of course, if we had that doubled die, it would be very obvious. We'd be seeing doubling all across the date here, and we don't. This is just a normal, circulated, dirty 1969 San Francisco. Roll 15, we're finally going to have another find. It's a 1964. It is our second 64 so far. Roll 16, there is a 1991 bound for the Copper Cup, but right behind it, we could see that different legend. This one is our first 1961. Just at the end of that roll, there's one that still has a little bit of mint luster you can see along the outside edge. Let's find out what it is. It's a 1963. Roll 17, and we got a nice, shiny, new-looking 1977. That's a beauty. Well, look who decided to show up. We do have a King George VI in this roll. This is still roll 17, so we're getting down to it here. And this one is going to be a 1951. It's our second from the 50s, our first King George VI to the party. Awesome. We're at the end of roll 18, and we've got another George. There it is. Pretty circulated. This time it's a very early 1940. So our first 40 is our oldest coin of the hunt. We're in the very last roll, number 20, and we've got at least one more find. It is another 1964 to add to the board. Okay, we finished that 20 roll hunt, and we can see our split was just a little slightly skewed towards the steel and zinc. Not quite as much copper, so we didn't get a really old haul, certainly no collection dump. Though we did find a few things. I'll just start with our foreign finds. This is just the copper from the US, including a 1969S that I'm just going to check because I'm not even sure if I have that. We got that 1 cent from 1977 from the Bahamas. And we found a couple of those doubled date 1979s and a couple of nicer copper cents, the 79 and the 77 there. We got an even dozen laureate portrait finds. We got one from 1961, 4 62s, a few 63s, a few 64s, and we even got one in the 50s, that 1957. And I think our stars of this show, we didn't get a lot of great finds, but we did find a few nice ones. We got a 1940 and a 1951 King George VI. Always good to see some older cents with King George in them. Well, I hope you enjoyed this penny hunt featuring Canadian pennies and a handful of foreigns there too. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, CAD Roll Hunter, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and definitely like the video. Hit that thumbs up. That helps out a great deal. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for coming. I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you again next time.